Good morning. It's great to see all of you here for the State of the City. This is a time to reflect on our achievements and challenges and share a vision. And each year the city co-hosts this event with the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm very pleased that we expanded our tradition by opening it up to the public so all community partners are welcome to participate, celebrate our accomplishments, and understand the challenges that lie ahead. We are so fortunate to live in a city with a rich 165-year history, filled with generations of civic and community leaders. The level of civic involvement here in Santa Barbara is unparalleled, and together we've built an incredible community through a legacy of stewardship and care. Everyone in this room shares in that legacy and the challenges we face to make the right decisions that maintain Santa Barbara high quality of life for future generations. So when I represent the city at U.S. Conference of Mayors meetings or other places with a statewide or national audience, I frequently receive comments about how blessed it must be to be mayor of such a great place of Santa Barbara, and they're right. As your mayor, I know our best work at City Hall is when I can collaborate with local community groups, nonprofit associations, neighborhoods, government agencies, faith-based groups, and business leaders to make the great place we live even better. And I know my colleagues in the City Council share this sentiment as well. So I'm also going to introduce here, and they're gathered here this morning, I want to introduce Mayor Pro Tem Greg Hart, Councilmember Dale Francisco, Councilmember Bendy White, Councilmember Frank Hotchkiss, Councilmember Randy Rouse, and Councilmember Kathy Murillo. The city's executive team is also seated throughout the room, as you know. Starting at the top, I'm very pleased to introduce someone many of us know already as our new City Administrator, Paul Casey. Paul's 17 years of experience overseeing various city operations brings us an unparalleled level of insight and knowledge. And he leads a high-caliber team of department heads, and we're going to go through them as well. Parks and Recreation Director Nancy Rapp, Police Chief Cam Sanchez, Fire Chief Pat McElroy, Library Director Irene Macias, Waterfront Director Scott Riedman, Public Works Director Rebecca Bjork, and our newest department heads, Community Development Director George Buell, Airport Director Hazel Johns, Administrative Services Director Christy Schmidt, Finance Director and Acting City Administrator Bob Samario, and rounding out our executive team is City Attorney Ariel Kalan. Thank you all. Mr. Kalan had a very busy first year here as our city attorney, as one of the largest legal issues we recently encountered is settling a lawsuit under the California Voting Rights Act and moving from electing our 6 council members on an at-large basis to district elections starting this November 2015. If you're a longtime resident, you're familiar with the district elections that were in place in the 1960s. We're now in the process of hearing from you about how to draw the district maps, and have 2 more public hearings this month. The council will vote on the preferred map for a submittal to the court for final approval at a special council meeting on March 30th. And I strongly encourage you to stay connected on this issue. Another significant challenge facing all of us is the exceptional drought. We've witnessed the 4 driest consecutive years on record, and the City Council has monthly public hearings to receive drought updates and discuss how to stay within our water supply management plan. Lake Cachuma, our main water supply source, is at 28% capacity. And this chart gives you a quick understanding of how our water sources have changed. With Lake Cachuma and Gibraltar Reservoir sources close to depletion, groundwater and outside water purchases are now being tapped to meet our current needs. We receive a small amount of state water. However, this is not a reliable source, with Northern California also facing a more extreme drought forecast. Still, being part of the state water system has helped us tremendously, as its distribution system gives us the capability to purchase and transport water from water basins outside of the South Coast. I've been so impressed by how our residents have stepped up to conserve water in their daily habits. Businesses have become more aggressive, and restaurants started serving water by request only. I don't see filled unused water glasses at your tables, so I want to congratulate and thank Fess Parker Doubletree Resort for continuing this practice at events. Since the drought was declared, the community achieved a 23% reduction in water use over the last 6 months. The biggest water-saving opportunity for many of us is reducing our lawn irrigation. Gold is truly the new green. Feel free to take one of the signs in the back to show your pride in a golden lawn. Last year, we assisted over 1,600 water customers, and our staff is ready to help you take the appropriate steps for your property or business needs. I want to acknowledge the efforts of Santa Barbara City College for all the steps they've taken to conserve water. We named them the 2014 Water Hero for their comprehensive campus-wide approach. By replacing inefficient faucets, toilets, and major equipment, they're on course to reduce their water use by 30%, and will also result in paying $35,000 less on their water bill each year. City crews are also busy replacing and repairing more than 23,000 water meters in your homes and businesses over the next 5 years to ensure accuracy and easy readability so you can monitor your own water use. Our recycled water facility is also under construction, and we expect it to be back online this summer. One question I know we wish we knew the answer to is, when will the drought end? So our best sources at NOAA has given us a 50-50 chance for the drought situation to improve or to worsen. So basically, we don't know. While we've seen some rainfall over the winter months, it was just not nearly enough to pull us out of the drought. And last year, the City Council unanimously voted to reactivate the desalination facility. Water Resources staff is currently reviewing proposals from firms who will design, build, and operate the plant, and the City Council expects to make the decision on whether to proceed with construction in June. This is the latest time we can possibly wait to issue a contract to have the plant up and running in 2016. The Council also directed staff to study other possible water supply options for the long term, such as indirect potable reuse. We've taken all the necessary planning and regulatory steps and carefully managed the decision points to prevent significant impacts to the community down the road. Given unpredictable rainfall, it seems likely that the desalination facility will need to be retrofitted and reactivated. We acknowledge that ratepayers will experience higher water bills. However, we also acknowledge that we must be able to meet our basic water supply needs for our health and well-being. In the earliest stages of the drought, our urban forest was probably experiencing the largest strain. Our basic landscaping will grow back, but we have many trees lining our streets and parks that have suffered with reduced water. Until the drought is lifted, the city has postponed planting new trees and lowered landscape water use in our parks, parking lots, and medians. We're watering some turf areas used for recreation just enough for the turf to remain alive. Sadly, some of the historic Italian stone pines along Anapamu Street didn't survive and were removed due to months of low water and a beetle infestation. But thanks to a generous donation from the Pearl Chase Society, the city installed irrigades to more efficiently irrigate the near 100-year-old trees, and we're pleased to report that the health of the remaining trees is improving. This type of partnership exemplifies the community spirit and passion we share to keep Santa Barbara a special place. Santa Barbara is a very resilient community. Time and again, we look past our obstacles and find innovative solutions. Speaking of partnerships, one very excited public-private partnership project is the new Children's Library. City projects work best when the community is involved in its creation, and thanks to many donors, especially the leadership within the Santa Barbara Library Foundation and Junior League of Santa Barbara, the new children's area will be a welcome renovation for our century-old Central Library. In our first video this morning, you'll learn about what this new resource will bring to young readers and their families.
Do you remember your first trip to the library? Or the day you received your first library card? The library is an important resource for children, and it provides a fun environment to develop valuable, lifelong learning skills.
We provide a whole array of programs for the very young kids, the Fabulous Friday programs, to the older kids. And there just isn't enough space in that area, and it's really a shame that in a community that values education and culture that we have such a constraint on the services that we can provide to kids.
We are a happy, busy place up there, but it is crowded. It's dark. There's old, big, dark wood furniture. The books for the 3rd and 4th grade kids are on shelves that are this high.
To alleviate these issues, a public campaign was launched to raise $5.6 million for a new and improved children's library.
Everybody got together and thought, well, wouldn't it be great to have an amazing state-of-the-art children's area of the library? We weren't even thinking as big as the basement. And so it really just came together.
Although the space is empty now, the new children's library will be located in the lower level of the public library. This space is 4 times the size of the current children's area and has enough room for technology hubs, reading nooks, homework help, special performances, and more.
The programs will have a kind of a natural Santa Barbara history feel to them, the islands and lots of Santa Barbara specific, and so that's exciting. And then once you get out into the open space, you're going to have the main library desk where the librarians will have sight vision across the whole space for safety purposes, as well as reading nooks in with the light. It's going to be great.
$4.2 million has been raised so far. Now, the Children's Library hopes the community will recognize the need and value of this project and come together to raise the remaining $1.4 million.
Our community is special in that the library is used by everybody. It's used from the poorest of the poor to the wealthiest. The library is really the hub of social interaction for our children. And it's really the first place where kids go when they can feel independence.
We have so many supporters. This is really the time for them to step forward and be a part of this group effort to provide an inspiring place for kids.
Construction is now underway. Yep. Construction is now underway, and we expect the Children's Library to open this summer. Next to the Central Library, our main corridor, State Street, has served the social, economic, and cultural center of the city for many years, and we're pleased that it was named one of the 10 Great Streets of America by the American Planning Association. Thanks in large part to the pedestrian amenities, landscaping, arts and cultural offerings, and incredible views of the mountains and ocean, State Street continues to be a vital retail corridor for residents and visitors alike. Our unique shops play a huge role in maintaining State Street's character and ambiance. I know that downtown merchants have been challenged lately with the several power outages due to outdated electrical infrastructure. While the electrical grid is not maintained by the City Council has been a strong advocate and partner with downtown Santa Barbara and the Santa Barbara Chamber in urging Southern California Edison to upgrade the power grid. We will continue to engage in regular conversations with Edison to make sure the lights stay on. We know the ongoing challenges facing downtown businesses, as well as merchants along Milpas and the waterfront area, is homelessness and activities by some individuals who exhibit inappropriate behavior, such as aggressive panhandling. The community impacts of homelessness on the individuals themselves, as well as our business owners, residents, and visitors, have been present in Santa Barbara for decades. And there are many of you in this room who are working with us on addressing this complex concern. We want our public spaces to be inviting and welcoming to residents and visitors and must balance enforcement tools with constitutional free speech laws. On the enforcement side, we've learned how important it is for the public and business owners to feel safe and welcome in our local shops and restaurants, and having a physical presence of public safety officers is essential. In the downtown, waterfront, and Milpas corridors, we have 6 full-time tactical patrol police officers, 6 part-time community service liaisons, and 3 part-time restorative outreach specialists working as a team with business owners, social service agencies, and homeless shelter providers. Last fall, the council took a larger step to increase police staff by creating 6 new community service officer positions. The new CSOs will be non-sworn, uniformed officers with badges who enforce low-level criminal behavior along key retail corridors. A couple of CSOs are already working the area, and once the others finish background checks and academy training, we expect to see the rest out on the street in a few months. With a more comprehensive street presence, tactical patrol officers in targeted areas, and improved communication between police officers and street outreach workers, we hope to see fewer business disruptions and impacts from inappropriate activity. Beyond enforcement, our innovative restorative policing program involving sworn police officers reaching out to homeless individuals with a compassionate approach to help them transition towards self-sufficiency. When a citation is issued, the police officers build trust and leverage a unique window of time as individuals could face jail time. To avoid jail, incentives including detox, drug rehab, and other social services are offered. In the last 3 years, the team assisted 302 clients who were responsible for thousands of calls to the police department, and 100 of them completed the voluntary restorative court process. Over two very early mornings in January, C3H, the Central Coast Collaborative on Homelessness, organized over 600 volunteers countywide to take part in the point-in-time count that is required by the federal government every 2 years. The data shows that within the city of Santa Barbara, there's been about a 10% decrease in the point-in-time count in the past 4 years, with 893 individuals counted this year, down from 946 in 2013 and 1,040 in 2011. Using a combination of strategies has been part of the solution. And one example of this is the pilot Milpas project initiated last February, which focuses on the 10 most chronically homeless individuals in the area towards housing or reunification with their family. Today, 9 of the 10 individuals are now connected to housing and supportive services. And C3H is now in discussions with downtown Santa Barbara to start replicating this program on this model on State Street. On a national level, Santa Barbara is in with over 400 communities throughout the country in the Mayor's Challenge to end veteran homelessness by the end of 2015. This audacious goal helps us learn and implement best practices that can remove barriers for veterans to obtain permanent housing and ensure at-risk veterans and their families obtain the services they are entitled to and deserved after serving their country for us. Already, we've experienced a renewed and stronger connection with the Veterans Administration Office in Los Angeles. Looking more broadly in the city, violent and property crimes are down by 27% in the past 5 years. Our regional efforts are paying off, working with the cities of Carpinteria and Lompoc and with the Community Action Commission to provide life skills education, paid job experience, and case management for 150 at-risk youth. The South Coast Task Force on Youth Gangs continues to meet regularly to develop and implement strategies to prevent gang violence and provide positive alternatives to gang activities, and we're seeing results. Since our efforts began in 2009, 309 youth were on probation with gang terms and conditions, and now, 5 years later, that number has dropped to 117. While they play a large role in gang enforcement, the police department remains very active in prevention activities. We continue to see high participation in the city's after-school programs and the Police Activities League. The new GREAT program is now graduating its first class of 5th graders. The Gang Resistance Education and Training Program is a national gang and violence prevention effort built around a school-based police officer instructed classroom curriculum. The goal is teaching students how to practice appropriate decision-making when faced with tough life decisions. This initiative builds on a strong foundation of recreation and neighborhood center programs the city offers to help make kids make healthy life choices. Another ongoing challenge our city has experienced for decades is the extremely low rental vacancy rate of less than 1%. Today, our work continues to ensure a wide range of housing options that meet the needs of a diverse community. The city and the Housing Authority have spent decades creating and preserving affordable housing, and through these efforts, 14% of the city's total housing stock is affordable. One of the first programs implemented from the city's general plan effort was the Average Unit Density Program that encourages smaller, more affordable housing units in new development projects. Higher densities can be achieved with fewer required parking spaces and smaller housing spaces that meet the needs of the modern professionals in our community, while also preserving the small town feel that we desire. We're optimistic about new projects that would ultimately translate to 175 new rental units in the downtown core. The rise of vacation rentals has also resulted in reducing the number of available rental units, and so the Council and the Planning Commission are exploring policy issues related to this new trend and plan to conduct some public outreach. In another effort, we're amending the zoning ordinance that dates back to the 1950s to restructure, simplify, and modernize our land development requirements. Our goal is to improve flexibility, and this will be helpful for all future development projects. At the end of the update process, we will have a restructured zoning ordinance that's easier to understand, more flexible, and includes staff administrative authority for minor items so we can be more responsive to unique situations. If we head from the downtown area now to Lower State Street, we encounter a hub of construction activity with city and private development projects underway. First, after many years of planning and delays, believe it or not, the construction of La Entrada has finally begun. Finally, right? With the scheduled completion date of summer 2016, La Entrada will include 124 hotel units, boutique retail shops, restaurants, public parking, and open-air courtyards and paseos, all in the Spanish colonial style. Lower State Street will remain open to traffic with one lane in each direction for most of the project duration. Nearby, we continue to replace decades-old bridges over Mission Creek. Construction is well underway for the Mason Street Bridge and the Cabrillo Boulevard Bridge. To replace a bridge in this high-traffic area, work will be conducted in 3 stages, so at least one lane of Cabrillo Boulevard remains open in each direction throughout construction. Both bridges will meet current structural safety guidelines, increase water flow under the bridge, improve pedestrian access, and create new wildlife habitat areas. The Wayfarer Youth Hostel finally opened nearby, providing an economical option for travelers, and then across the street at the corner of State and Mason, a new 34-room hotel is in the planning stages. Combined with the vibrant Funk Zone activity, this area promises to look very different in a few years and return the area to a more inviting pedestrian corridor between the downtown and waterfront. And there's more, especially as they relate to new partnerships that are flourishing in creating opportunities for youth. A few months ago, the community partners celebrated the groundbreaking of MOXIE, the Wolf Museum of Exploration and Innovation, which will provide a much-needed educational space for young people. The new Children's Museum will be a 17,000 square foot facility with exhibits, indoor and outdoor galleries, a courtyard, and a roof terrace. To get this project started and support youth activities, the city leased its property to the museum practically free of charge for 50 years. We approved a similar leasing agreement and provide seed money for a new community arts workshop at the corner of Garden and Ortega Streets in the former recycling center. Finally, Summer Solstice Parade will have a permanent home, and the Arts Collaborative will oversee the use of the facility for the rest of the year for arts organizations to use for workshops, exhibits, rehearsals, classes, and community meetings. This is another great example of public-private partnerships at work as they initiate the fundraising capital campaign. So here's some more information, and you'll recognize many people in this next video.
So here's the thing.
There's the space.
A couple of big empty buildings waiting to be transformed.
By art.
It's in the heart of Santa Barbara at the corner of Garden and Ortega.
In its past, it was a motor pool and also a recycling center.
Now, it's used mostly as a parking lot.
It's about 5,000 square feet.
5,000 square feet of possibility.
In 2014, the city earmarked $300,000 to turn the space into a dedicated arts facility.
And provide a permanent home for Solstice for 2 months each summer.
The Solstice Parade brings a lot of money to Santa Barbara. Millions of dollars in just one weekend.
The Summer Solstice Parade has helped define and bring the community together for the past 40 years.
They need a place to roost.
To put down roots and be a real entity. Like the film festival.
Or Old Spanish Days Fiesta.
Or the Santa Barbara Bowl. For the rest of the year, it'll be used by arts groups as a workspace.
Cheaper rents than anywhere else in town.
It's like a big blank canvas.
For exhibitions and visiting artists.
And for pop-up foodie events.
And live music performances.
For painting the State Street pianos.
For set building.
For dance performances.
A hub for collaboration between groups.
For spillover.
And crossover.
And whatever else you can imagine.
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 The project is being organized by the Santa Barbara Arts Collaborative.
We're going to call it the Community Arts Workshop.
The city is fully behind the idea.
The downtown organization loves it.
Same with the Santa Barbara Foundation.
New Noise is totally into it.
And Girls Rock too.
Rehearsing operas, building sets, constructing props, fitting costumes. I see screeching sopranos and booming baritones. Opera Santa Barbara loves this space.
Jensen Music Foundation totally supports it.
UCSB is also all the way on board.
Boxdale's wants it.
The Santa Barbara Chamber endorses it.
Youth Interactive too.
You get the idea.
There's the space.
A big empty building waiting to be transformed.
By art.
We now move over to the waterfront area. We're at the harbor. We're nearing completion of the replacement of 30-year-old Marina One with almost 600 slips. Funded by slip fee revenue and a loan from the State Department of Boating and Waterways, we're steadily replacing 2 docks a year with a goal of finishing all the docks by 2018. On the other side of the waterfront, construction will soon be underway to renovate the Cabrillo Arts Pavilion that celebrates its 90th anniversary next year. This site is home to countless community meetings, weddings, and events, in addition to the bathhouse facility that's seldom used in its current condition. Soon, you'll have a modern facility to change clothes after beach volleyball and a more appealing area for morning coffee at the East Beach Grill. Fortunately, we were able to make use of the last of the redevelopment agency funds to complete this project. As you can see, there are many opportunities ahead of us. So it's fitting that we have a new chief executive to guide the city organization. And at this point, I'd like to invite City Administrator Paul Casey to the podium to give us an overview of the city's financial condition. Paul.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good morning. I thought I would first start off by introducing council members and the executive management team one by one. There was one oversight. We want to welcome Mayor Paula Perotti from the city of Goleta, who's here this morning. So thank you for coming, Mayor. As you may know, the city operates through a couple of key budget approaches. We have a general fund that covers basic governmental services like police, fire, libraries, parks, and recreation, and they're supported by general tax revenues. But we also have enterprise funds, and those are special funds that are self-supporting and operate as their own financial entities. They get no support from general taxes or the general fund, and instead rely solely on their own revenue to support their services. And I thought I would start by talking about the financial condition of some of these key funds. First, water and wastewater. There are 2 large utility funds operated by the city, and they are ratepayer supported through billing charges. But they're also very old systems and are heavily and constantly used and require large ongoing capital investments year in and year out to maintain the system and to meet ever-increasing safety requirements for clean water. The drought makes it very challenging to manage these systems financially. We have fixed costs to operate the systems, while at the same time we're asking our customers to reduce use by 20%. Add on top of that, our ability to provide water gets more and more expensive in a drought as our reservoirs empty and we need to purchase water through the state water system or drill new wells or consider desalination. This creates a challenging financial climate to operate that you see playing out in other water utility districts locally and across the state. So far, we've managed this conundrum well financially. It's required us to increase rates to be able to provide a consistent supply of water, but the financial condition of these 2 funds is still good and balanced for the most part, and we still have healthy reserves to address any unforeseen needs coming forward. Down at the waterfront, revenues are very strong. The drought for the waterfront means great weather year-round, which has led to very strong activity in the waterfront parking lots, and the restaurants and concessions on the wharf are doing very well. Cruise ship activity is also strong. We're expecting 27 cruise ships in 2015. This has led to an increase in revenue for the waterfront and also a jolt of activity for the businesses who support passengers that visit our city. And at the federal level, the president's budget includes funding for dredging the harbor, which is good news. We rely on the Army Corps of Engineers to dredge the harbor 2 times a year to keep the harbor open. And we saw what happens last year when we missed just 1 cycle of dredging. The harbor mouth closed after a big storm, closing the harbor for a week or so. And we also saw the dramatic scouring of the beach below the harbor that occurred because the sand was not there that would have been deposited by the dredging. So we maintain a constant focus and lobbying effort with the federal government to secure funding for dredging the harbor. With regards to downtown parking, the parking fund is doing well as well. Revenues are up due to increased economic activity downtown, as well as the convenience of adding credit card payment as an option upon leaving the parking structures. We reinvest those funds back into the parking system and we'll be implementing upcoming projects, including more efficient LED lighting, expanding the use of security cameras, and painting the interior of the structures. Out at the airport, this is one of our enterprise funds that is struggling right now. We are seeing a nationwide reduction in air service, which is hurting air traffic in Santa Barbara, and it's frustrating. We have local air service that's performing well. Passenger loads are high, the airlines are making money off the route, and yet they look at that plane and fixed asset and say they can make more money by switching it to a different hub somewhere else in the country, and so they remove that service from Santa Barbara. That, coupled with a pilot shortage for flights out of smaller airports like ours, has made for challenging times. So from a financial standpoint, we're looking to have to use airport reserves for the next few years. We'll look at continuing to cut costs to manage this drop in activity, as well as trying to maximize rental income from the commercial real estate that we own along Hollister Avenue that supports airport operations. But we'll also continue our focus on marketing and recruiting new air service to Santa Barbara. The mayor will talk more about that in a moment, but you can be assured we are doing all that we can to try to increase air service out of the airport. The golf course is another enterprise fund that is struggling and also facing nationwide trends with the declining in golfing activity. While the golf course is still busy with about 60,000 active rounds per year, it's down dramatically over the past 20 years, and the projection is that if no action is taken, all the golf fund reserves will be used up in the next couple years. So the council recently took steps to shore up this golf fund. This includes enhanced marketing efforts, including a new online scheduling software program. We refinanced existing debt to help with the operational budget. And most recently, council directed staff to move towards transitioning golf course maintenance work to contract staff. A large number of municipal golf courses use contract staff for maintenance, so this is not an unusual approach. And council made a commitment that no existing employees will lose their jobs. We feel through upcoming retirements and moving people to similar positions throughout the city organization, we will be able to accomplish this. Okay, let's switch to the general fund now. Like I said, the general fund is where your basic governmental services are provided, like police and fire, and supported by general tax revenues. The general fund is clearly doing better than it was 5 years ago. As the chart shows, our revenue growth has been strong since 2010 with about 3.5% growth and good key recovery in general fund revenues. Looking at some of these key revenues in detail, let's start with sales tax. Sales tax has shown good steady growth over the past 5 years. Historically, sales tax has shown more dramatic rebounds after a recession, but according to our sales tax consultants and nationwide trends, internet sales continue to cut into sales tax revenue to local and state governments. Sales tax will always remain a key revenue source for the city, but I think its growth will be tempered over the years as online retail sales continue to cut into brick and mortar activity. Our transient occupancy tax, on the other hand, has been nothing short of stellar. Solid growth over the past 5 years, with the last couple years in particular being very strong. Hotel occupancies are high, room rates are strong, and we have a couple of additional hotels coming on board with the likes of Entrada and the Santa Barbara Inn coming back online this summer. Property tax is another key local revenue source, and as you can see, we've seen growth there, but not quite as strong or dramatic. You can see in fiscal year 2013 that we had a spike in property taxes, but that was due to the dissolution of the redevelopment agency. As part of that process, we had saved up about $30 million of redevelopment money to help fund part of the police station rebuilding effort that we'd like to do. Instead, we had to return that money to the various taxing entities, and the city is one of those taxing entities, and so the general fund got 12 cents on the dollar of the money that we had to return, and that's reflected in the 2013 bar. Not necessarily a good deal for the city, but there it is. If you factor out that one-time bump, though, property tax growth is occurring, but not as strong or dramatic fashion. Let's look at our general fund reserves. By policy, we are required to have 25% of our operating budget held in budget reserves. Back in 2008, we had a $10 million gap in funding that reserve policy level. But since then, we've chipped away at that, and the gap has now been closed to just under $2 million. And we do have close to $30 million on hand in our general fund reserves, which is substantial. One thing to note on the reserves is that about 2 years ago, the City Council adopted a policy to put half of our year-end surplus into reserves, with the other half going into capital and infrastructure, a move to bolster our investment in capital and infrastructure. Prior to that, all of our year-end surpluses would flow just to the reserves. I think that was a smart thing for council to do, as capital funding is critical and we need to reinvest in our infrastructure. But if we hadn't done so, just to show the change of that policy, we would have fully funded our reserves up to the policy level by this point. So it's one of those decisions on priorities, with both options being laudable goals. If the economy stays strong, we'll keep chipping away at getting back to full policy level, and we think we'll get there in the next couple of years. One of the ways we've been able to restore our reserve policy is during the past few years is by becoming a leaner organization. We've reduced the number of employees by 6% since 2009, and we're at the same number of employees that we had back in 1999. Another way we've improved our financial condition is that the council and labor unions have agreed over the last couple of years that all city employees will pay their employee contribution into their retirement system. It has been and is still a common practice for most jurisdictions to pay the employee share of the retirement program, but credit to the council and labor unions for negotiating agreements such that with the city of Santa Barbara, all employees now pick up that cost directly. And this has led to a savings to the city of approximately $6 million per year. So in summary, the general fund is in good financial shape. Revenues are strong, our reserves are close to being fully funded, and the short-term outlook is favorable. And with that, I'll turn it back to the mayor. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. As you can see, the city is making smart decisions, and we're keeping our fiscal house in order. We're balancing our budget and stretching our resources as far as we can, with much of the construction you see around town the result of outside grant funding or paid through user fees like water rates or slipholder fees at the harbor. It's important for everyone not to lose sight, though, of the fact that we have still a lot of old historic buildings in use, and the challenge facing all of us is how to keep them viable for continued use. How to ensure facilities are safe, clean, and modern enough for the community's needs. With tight budgets for several years, we've been triaging our funding towards the highest priorities, and this means we've had to make some difficult decisions, even closing facilities that need urgent repairs. During the recession, the state eliminated redevelopment agencies, and that meant the loss of $16 million a year in funding that paid for many of these capital projects. We've been successful in finding grant funds, but we can't count on these funds in the future, and grant funding isn't out there to fix some of our vital community needs and buildings. Community leaders have ensured that our performing arts centers are modernized and brought up to code. Cottage Hospital is halfway through construction of their medical care facilities and will be complete by 2018. In the past decade, we've steadily made progress to ensure seismic safety in some of our older structures. The airport, our parking structures, Carrillo Recreation Center, the fire station on Carrillo, but the 1960 police station is not prepared for an earthquake. And this is where we're starting to lose money to quick fixes. We recently moved all the 911 dispatchers out of the basement to the top floor of the Granada Garage with a price tag of $2.3 million. We're also seeing more quick fixes to keep up our roads. Funding levels haven't changed much in the last few decades, and our gas tax revenue, pennies on the gallon, buys us less and less each year. Meanwhile, the cost of asphalt has risen sharply over the last decade. We've managed to make the best use of our current $3 million a year in streets capital funding by slurry sealing the main streets in each neighborhood every 6 years. But what we're really doing is extending the life of the street a few years without doing the real reconstructing and repaving work, which is more expensive. If we continue using this Band-Aid approach, poor road quality will be more noticeable to the community, and it will be much more expensive for us to fix the roads the longer we wait. So the bottom line is we're losing real money on temporary fixes that's ultimately costing us more and not solving the problem. The ballpark estimate for all of our unfunded needs for streets, parks, and facilities is over $400 million over the next 20 years. So to get a better understanding of the community's needs and plan accordingly, we held 17 community meetings and conducted an informal survey to learn what's important to you. You told us that your top priority was streets and pavement, second, the police station, and followed by sidewalks. The City Council wants to invest wisely in our buildings before larger things start falling apart, so we're conducting a formal community poll to figure out whether the community is interested in new funding options. Many of our infrastructure needs are related to neighborhood amenities like park facilities, sidewalks, and streetlights. And with the help of grant funding, we're implementing small projects that provide safe transportation options, such as reducing the number of locations that needed access ramps from 1,250 down to 984. We're implementing several projects from the East Side Transportation Management Plan to improve neighborhood safety and are very excited to receive $8 million in state grant funds for a number of transportation projects. Several projects are in design now, including pedestrian bridges over Sycamore Creek along Cacique and Soledad Streets, new sidewalks for the lower Milpas area below the freeway near Tri-County Produce, Dwight Murphy Park, and the Santa Barbara Zoo. Grant funds will also pay for the replacement of Montecito Street Bridge to better accommodate pedestrians and bicyclists with a wider structure and new sidewalk, improving pedestrian safety near the Franklin and Cleveland elementary schools. The Punta Gorda Bridge was recently replaced to reduce the impacts of flooding to properties adjacent to Lower Sycamore Creek. Over the past years, we've added pedestrian refuge islands at 6 intersections near Adelante and Franklin Elementary Schools to enhance the visibility of students crossing the roadway. Near Cleveland School, we realigned an intersection at Salinas Street to make it safer for kids and their families to cross this busy street. With Southern California Edison's assistance, we're almost finished installing LED streetlights on 50 blocks on the East Side neighborhood, and we're continuing to install 77 new streetlights planned across town in the West Downtown neighborhood. And then finally, a new pocket park is now at the corner of Bath and Ortega Streets. Healthy neighborhoods go beyond capital improvements, of course. It's also about connecting our residents to key health and social services. Last September, the city joined with Santa Barbara County and the Santa Barbara Unified School District to host a free family health fair at Bonnet Park on the west side. More than 50 organizations provided 243 free health screenings, live music, educational demonstrations, and healthy food for children and adults. This winter at the U.S. Conference of Mayors meeting in Washington, D.C., in my role as co-chair of the Hunger and Homelessness Task Force, I had the opportunity to share our community's innovative Food for Kids program. Together with the Unified School District, the Community Action Commission, and Share Our Strength, we helped the 23% of children in Santa Barbara County considered food insecure to have a free, healthy lunch during the summer months when school is no longer in session. We were able to combine the strengths of each agency to provide nutritious meals to kids who would otherwise go without a meal. And in this partnership, the city was pleased to use our neighborhood community centers as meal sites. Connecting our residents to city services is important to us, and we want to provide as much access as possible to improve the public's awareness of various activities and services and policies. The police department continues to host 2 8-week police academies in each year in English and Spanish. Outreach to the Spanish-speaking community expanded further this year with the first bilingual CERT class. CERT courses provide in-depth training on disaster preparedness to build a cadre of volunteers throughout the community who can assist others during an emergency. We've modernized the council chambers, David Gephardt Room, and Faulkner Gallery with installation of a hearing loop assistive listening system to help people with a hearing loss participate in city council discussions and other board and commission meetings. Another project that significantly improves transparency is the new OpenGov tool on the city's website, providing easy access to the current budget and city's financial data. I highly encourage you to use this tool to view the city's budget and prior years of revenues and expenses, all with user-friendly features and customized charts and views. Over the past few years, I've reached out to different business sectors to understand the challenges local businesses face so we can then implement strategies that improve our service to you. We've listened to you and understand that time is money. And this morning, I'm pleased to announce a new series of instructional videos and resources on our city website. At your places, you'll find a quick guide with key information to your business to get your business started in Santa Barbara. So let's check out these new resources in our next video. Your role in the business community is an important one, and we know that at the city, you have to work with us to be successful. We know that your time is money, and so we need to do what we can at the city to make sure that you are successful in moving forward, whether it is finding a new place to open a business, getting your lease, figuring out all the tenant improvements you may need to have. It can get complicated. So what we're hoping through a series of videos and some informational pieces out to you is to help you find the best way to open up your business for success, and to at least start asking the questions that may have to go through your mind before you sign that lease paper, before you make those final decisions. So I hope you do take the time to look at the information that we're providing to you so that we can work together as partners in making Santa Barbara as economically viable as possible.
Santa Barbara is truly a magnificent place to live, work, and visit. Business owners play an important role not only in the economic health of the community, but also ensuring public safety through adherence to high standards in aesthetics, design, construction, and environmental leadership. These standards help preserve the old world charm and ambiance for which Santa Barbara is world-renowned. If you want to start a business in Santa Barbara, city staff welcomes your questions and is ready to assist you in fulfilling the necessary requirements.
When someone comes into 630 Garden Street, all staff are committed to quality customer service. We hope to provide clear information, accurate information, to set expectations in your mind realistically as to what can be achieved. We hope to respond to your emails and telephone calls in a timely fashion, and to provide predictability to your process from start to finish.
In addition to city efforts, community organizations like the Small Business Development Center at Santa Barbara City College are here to help.
So we help small businesses actually get started. We help with existing businesses retain jobs if they're in a distressed situation, and we help to create jobs and gain access to capital investment or finance for the small businesses.
Potential business owners should also contact the Santa Barbara Chamber of Commerce. This hardworking organization helps small businesses identify challenges and create a plan for the big picture.
What our job is to try and make the climate here as beneficial for the business community as possible, which certainly helps with startup businesses. So, through our new Economic Vitality team, which is the economic development organization for all of Santa Barbara County, it's working in each of the communities to find what sorts of roadblocks there might be to folks that want to start a business.
The city and its partners want to provide new businesses with as much information as possible up front. By sharing information together early in the process, prospective business owners can avoid surprises and understand key regulations.
We like to catch these small business owners before they actually get too deep and help them to analyze what they need in terms of what the costs will be, what the permitting process is, what the licensing process is, so that we get them, before they start spending money on the wrong things, get them to really understand what they're getting into before they commit themselves to a landlord or a property.
There are many variables and costs to consider when starting a business.
For instance, if I'm moving here and I'm going to open up a small retail store, there's a lot of things that you've got to be able to know before you go sign that lease. We certainly don't want people deciding they want to put their business in location X and they sign the lease and they go to then get all the permissions from the city and find out it's not zoned for that purpose, or they don't have adequate parking for that use.
To learn more about the city's regulations and tips for small businesses, instructional videos and guides are available on the city website. This information covers how to obtain a business license, tips before you sign a lease, and the basics of the city planning and permitting process. There are many resources available to help you start your business. A successful business is good for everyone.
In a few weeks, I'll be meeting with business-serving organizations like the Chamber of Commerce and Women's Economic Ventures so we can start planning training sessions for entrepreneurs. Another website the city's planning to use is smartride.org, the new traffic solutions website that gives our employees an online commuter dashboard that shows bus schedules, bike routes, carpools, and van pools at the click of a button. A frequent request we hear from business owners is more facilities for bikes. In the spring, the city is updating its bicycle master plan with an extensive public outreach effort where you'll have an opportunity to share your thoughts and suggestions on bike facilities and parking. With encouragement from businesses on Cannon Perdido, the first bike corral was installed in front of Handlebar Coffee. And to help bike riders connect to a bus route, the construction just began on a new bike station at Parking Lot 3 behind the MTD bus depot. And this new bike station will hold almost 30 bikes. At the Santa Barbara Airport, Paul mentioned some impacts from recent airline service reductions that have affected airports nationwide. But I can announce today that Alaska Airlines will be adding an additional flight to Seattle in June so that 2 flights per day are available. Yes, we'll take a clap for that. Take applause for that. United Airlines has transitioned towards larger, quieter jet service to Denver, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, which we hope will reduce the number of flight cancellations to San Francisco Airport, since prop planes are the first canceled in foggy conditions. New air service models are growing more popular. Surf Air is a new membership-based service where you pay for unlimited services on flights available. The most popular routes now take you to the Bay Area, Burbank, Lake Tahoe, and Los Angeles. And plans are in the works to expand service to Sacramento, Palm Springs, San Diego, and Las Vegas. Hoping that works, right? There's more good news at the airport for businesses in our region who are in need of light manufacturing space. The city recently sold airport property north of Hollister Avenue to Direct Relief to help the global humanitarian aid organization build a new state-of-the-art warehouse and office space. And with the sale proceeds, the city has plans to build 7 or 8 buildings of light industrial space at the airport, which will fill a critical gap in the region's inventory for startup or growing businesses. Thanks to resources like this, the startup businesses have many community resources available to help them build their dreams in Santa Barbara. And let's take a look in our final video.
Santa Barbara enjoys a positive global reputation in a number of areas, like scenic beauty, history, weather, art, and culture. But over the last few years, a new phrase has begun to work its way onto the list: startup hotbed.
People are blown away that this community supports that big of a community of entrepreneurship and startup companies. If I'm at other summits elsewhere and they ask me what's going on in Santa Barbara, and I start listing companies like Citrix Online and AppFolio and Sonos and Deckers is here, and, you know, people's jaws hit the floor and go, wow, there's a ton going on. And then I go, yeah, that's the big companies. No, let me tell you about the middle-sized companies and the smaller startups that are coming online.
Weave is one of the most productive women's business centers in terms of the number of clients that we serve in the entire United States. So I would say that speaks well for the entrepreneurial environment here.
To be fertile ground for startups, experts say a few key ingredients are required, ingredients Santa Barbara has in spades.
There's talent, which you guys have a lot of. You've got great education system, great university, great engineers. There's capital. Santa Barbara doesn't have a lot of venture capitalists, but there's a lot of capital here. There's government, what the role of the government is to make it easy and lower the threshold as it relates to helping startups actually get started.
If you appreciate living in one of the most beautiful climates in the world and being able to recreate or surf or paddleboard or be in the water or hang out at the beach or ride a mountain bike up in the mountains. I mean, if those things are important to you, which they are to a lot of startup culture, entrepreneurs, then this is a pretty magical place to live.
And while the cultures of entrepreneurialism in Santa Barbara are in sync, the metadata behind the boom in startups is a substantial network of support and information resources.
So typically a talented entrepreneur will have a lot of energy, a good idea, or at least the beginning of a good idea, but they lack the experience and the education on how to really design a business. And so what Newspheric does is it provides that infrastructure. It provides the guidance, the basic leadership that the company will need to get to that point.
Startup SB is, we run about 9 events a year. It's just to get people together. It's to give opportunities for young startups to get out in front of people, to talk about what they're doing, to maybe connect with mentors, maybe connect with financing, investment, maybe find teammates, maybe find people that can help their business grow. And then other individuals just to get inspired by the people that already have their business up and running. Maybe you'll hear about a new idea. It's just to bring ideas together and help them flourish in town.
Weave is a nonprofit organization. We provide a continuum of services from training that helps the client who has an idea but hasn't actually started their business yet, up through the first 5 years or more of actually running and growing the business.
Another key ingredient to the startup recipe is access to workspace that is flexible, versatile, and scalable.
That's what Synergy is. It's 6,500 square feet. We've got about 32 different businesses down here, about 55 different people, and it's really kind of a professional business and startup center, if you will. A lot of creative people down here, and it's just a really creative, fun place to work and to kind of have a family.
A resource like Work Zones and other types of places that really support the solopreneurs, which is the big trend that I see, is this very small independent 1- and 2-person type businesses. They have this flexibility and professionalism, but without having the overhead costs. So it's really hard when you first get started. Every penny counts, and so this is a good example of ways that we can support the community and keep it moving here.
The proliferation of these startup-friendly workspaces, coupled with a solid base of willing mentors and support by a host of resources, has given entrepreneurialism in Santa Barbara a critical mass.
And I really think in the last couple of years it's hit a crescendo. It seems that the academic and business and government each of those different components have come together and really done a lot to create the ecosystem that is inviting and very attractive to startup entrepreneurs.
We value your organization and your commitment to remain in Santa Barbara. We're focusing on providing the environment needed to help businesses flourish. Our local economy has turned a corner, and this is a great time to reflect on our respective roles to preserve our community's economic vibrancy that is so easy to take for granted. From protecting the environment to supporting public art and the cultural economy, to building and renovating vital community facilities, to collaborating with many partners on complex societal challenges, the city is employing numerous strategies for our local economy to prosper. This is a moment for us to reflect and honor how our community became the amazing place that we all know and love, and make a plan to continue that legacy. We are the direct beneficiaries of decades of vision and stewardship of past city leaders. The actions they took to create and preserve our historic architecture and many parks and recreation facilities are all around us. Our streets, sidewalks, bikeways, our police and fire departments, our many community events and celebrations, all defining this place we call home. And now it's our turn to shape the community for future generations. The state of the city is vibrant and strong, and to preserve our economic vitality, it's important that we work together to ensure that Santa Barbara keeps its luster. Thank you very much.